As the quote goes, competition drives innovation. This is true in many facets, but especially true for the ABA and NBA during the late 60s and mid 70s. The ABA was a high-flying, fast-paced, and exciting league compared to the more methodical game the NBA was known for. Additionally, the ABA was poaching talent away from the NBA, luring players and referees with much larger contracts. However, this was unsustainable, and the ABA lost money through the early to mid-1970s. In 1976, the ABA and NBA merged into one professional basketball league. The NBA absorbed 4 ABA franchises and their history, along with those fans. The NBA won the war. But what if they didn't? What if the ABA's contemporary style of play, large contracts, and other numerous attractive qualities catapulted its popularity beyond the NBA's? What if the ABA absorbed the NBA, and they became the premier basketball league and product? Let's break it down. In 1965, Dennis Murphy, a marketing executive and sports fan, came up with the idea of a second professional basketball league. Murphy began discussing the passion project with Hall of Famer Bill Sharman, who coached for the American Basketball League. After some discussion, they came up with the basis for the ABA. Sharman could not be involved in the league due to contract issues, but made many suggestions such as the three-point line. Additionally, Sharman suggested that Murphy seek out assistance from former NBA star and Hall of Famer George Mikan. In hindsight, it 100% makes sense why Sharman is a 2-time Hall of Fame inductee, both as a player and coach. He is truly one of the best basketball minds of all time. Eventually, Murphy had an array of investors lined up in several cities, while Mikan's interest in the league led him to be the first ABA commissioner. During this time in the 1960s, numerous pro sports leagues of varying success began popping up all over the country. The NBA was most vulnerable to this concept, as the league was still in its early years, with only 20 under their belts, the youngest of any of the 4 major leagues. The NBA itself at this time was considered 3rd or 4th in popularity and total coverage, behind the MLB and NFL. Additionally, the NBA only had 12 teams by the time the ABA was founded in 1967. According to an anonymous owner, the original goal of the ABA was for owners and investors to make money by forcing a merger with the NBA. Potential ABA investors were pitched that they can acquire an ABA franchise for half the cost of an NBA expansion team. So, when the eventual merger would occur, their investments would more than double. The ABA distinguished itself from the NBA by implementing a more wide-open, flashy style of offensive play, along with differences in the rules. They implemented a 30-second shot clock and three-point shot, spreading their game out and allowing for more variables in their games. Also, the ABA introduced the concept of regional franchises. This concept was practiced by both the Virginia Squires and Carolina Cougars, playing home games in several cities within their respective region. For example, imagine the New England Patriots playing home games in Vermont, Maine, Rhode Island, etc. An interesting concept, but costly for the league to pull off. With 2 leagues, there can only be so many players available. The ABA, being in a more desperate situation, began luring players away from the NBA with much larger contracts. The NBA was furious, as talent was being poached from their teams. Additionally, the NBA believed the ABA was paying off agents to persuade players to agree to these contracts. In some cases, their concerns were right, going as far as to spy on their rivals to prove their suspicions. However, the ABA wasn't just going after the NBA's players, but also poached 4 of their best referees. The ABA convinced them to jump leagues by offering better pay and benefits. Ironically enough, Strom would go on to recall in his memoir that the grass was not always greener on the other side. Strom conveyed both the exhilarating sense of being desired by a rival league with more money to burn, yet also discussed the depression that set in the next year when he began his ABA career. He would walk in inadequate arenas with poor facilities while working with lesser prominent players with varying degrees of talent. More than anything, his job felt like a chore. Nevertheless, the ABA helped boost the overall salaries for future generations of players and officials. The ABA teams, Nets, Colonels, Pacers, Spurs, Nuggets, and Stars, registered higher attendance on average than most NBA teams. The freewheeling style of the ABA eventually caught on with fans. However, the lack of a national television contract really worked against them. Additionally, financial losses over the years would prove to be the downfall of the ABA. The league successfully merged with the NBA in 1976, achieving their original goal. 4 ABA teams joined the NBA, which were the Spurs, Nuggets, Nets, and Pacers. 2 other clubs, the Kentucky Colonels and Spirits of St. Louis, were disbanded upon the merger. Shortly after, the NBA teams had the chance to bring in players from those disbanded teams through the dispersal draft. One of the more significant long-term contributions the ABA brought to professional basketball was tapping into markets within the Southeast that have been collegiate basketball hotbeds. States like North Carolina, Virginia, and Kentucky were the focus of the ABA. Meanwhile, the NBA was focused on urban areas of the Northeast, Midwest, and West Coast. Another significant contribution the ABA brought to the modern game was the Spencer Haywood hardship rule. This rule later became the framework for the current NBA eligibility system that allows players to practice the one-and-done philosophy. The ABA believed that in extenuating circumstances, such as financial situation, players should be able to leave school for professional sports leagues. This paved the way for other players to enter the ABA before they had completed their collegiate careers, such as George McGinnis and Julius Erving. Now that we have gotten through the actual history of the ABA and the merger, let's dive into the alternate reality where the NBA was in financial distress and the ABA was the premier league. Now, in 1967-68, the NBA consisted of 12 teams, which were the Baltimore Bullets, Boston Celtics, Cincinnati Royals, Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, Chicago Bulls, Los Angeles Lakers, San Diego Rockets, San Francisco Warriors, and St. Louis Hawks. By the time of the merger in 1976, the NBA had grown from 12 franchises to 18, and when the merger occurred, the NBA acquired 4 more franchises. The ABA, on the other hand, had 11 franchises from the time it was founded in 1967 until 1972, when 2 of their franchises disbanded. After that, the snowball only grew, with only 7 franchises left by the time of the 1976 merger. With that in mind, let's get to the setup. It is 1972, and the NBA has came across its first major hurdle since the ABA's introduction. Financial troubles for Cleveland Cavaliers and Buffalo Braves proved to be too much to bear, so both disband, leaving the NBA with 16 franchises. These same issues rear their ugly head again both in the 1974 and 1975 season, as the New Orleans Jazz and Kansas City Kings also disband, leaving the NBA with 14 teams. Then, right before the merger, the Milwaukee Bucks disband in 1976, bringing the grand total to just 13 NBA franchises by the time of the merger. Meanwhile, the ABA was experiencing both rapid financial growth in finances and fandom. The difference in offensive game, inclusion of three-point line, and the dunk contest gave fans something exciting and refreshing. CBS saw this trend, and in 1973 signed a contract with the ABA. This was a transitional time for the NBA's TV deal, as CBS was supposed to supplant ABC's contract with the NBA. However, due to the growing popularity of the ABA, CBS decided to sign a deal with the league. This was the real tipping point that pushed the needle towards the ABA's advantage. Their Southeast fan base were major basketball fans, traveling hundreds of miles to see their regional teams. This meant great financial growth for the ABA and all its 11 franchises. Back to the merger. At this time, the NBA consisted of the Seattle Supersonics, Phoenix Suns, Portland Trail Blazers, Boston Celtics, New York Knicks, Philadelphia 76ers, Atlanta Hawks, Houston Rockets, Washington Bullets, Chicago Bulls, Detroit Pistons, Golden State Warriors, and Los Angeles Lakers. Now, just like in the real merger, 2 NBA franchises will be disbanding upon the ABA's acquisition. The Phoenix Suns and Portland Trail Blazers will disband, while their players will be included in a dispersal draft. So the 1976 NBA merger occurs, and the ABA acquires the 13 NBA franchises. The ABA now includes the following franchises: the Celtics, the Knicks, the Sixers, the Hawks, the Rockets, the Bulls, the Pistons, the Warriors, the Lakers, the San Antonio Spurs, the Indiana Pacers, the Utah Stars, the Floridians, the Baltimore Claws, the New York Nets, Virginia Squires, the Pittsburgh Condors, San Diego Sails, and Seattle Supersonics. 22 franchises spanning all over the United States. The dispersal draft involved 12 picks and 12 players, with the order as follows. With the dispersal draft taken care of, the ABA is officially 22 teams strong, with most new acquisitions being legendary franchises with devout fans. The following years proved very successful, with Bird and Magic declaring for the ABA draft in 1979. With plenty of financial and commercial success, Dave DeBusschere and the ABA expanded with a franchise in Dallas. However, with ABA history in mind, the team name is the Dallas Chaparrals, the original team name of the San Antonio Spurs. Now at 23 teams, the ABA is on track with the true timeline. The 1980s officially begin, and sometime later in 1984, the savior of the ABA arrived in Michael Jordan, pioneering the ABA to a global game behind DeBusschere. In 1988-89, the Floridians, based in Miami, moved back to the original home of Minnesota, becoming the Minnesota Muskies. Then, the ABA adds the Heat to Miami to replace the Floridians. Additionally, the Carolina Cougars are an expansion franchise out of Greensboro, North Carolina, theoretically replacing the NBA's Hornets. In the same season, the Orlando Magic are the ABA's third expansion team. It is hard not to feel the magic in Orlando, aka Mickey's home. Entering a new decade, the ABA is now sitting at 26 total teams. The 90s have arrived, and so has Michael Jordan. Now more than ever, the ABA is being noticed by worldwide sports fans. To truly commit to the international fans, the ABA expanded with two new franchises in 1995-96. Looking to our neighbors to the north, the ABA brought a franchise to Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the Toronto Huskies, paying homage to the BAA franchise of 1946. Additionally, the ABA added a franchise to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, the Vancouver Grizzlies. With the addition of these franchises, the ABA is growing rapidly with international fans. Players like MJ, Kobe, and Shaq are the ambassadors for the sport, providing our first look at ABA stars becoming celebrities. This trend only grows going into the 2000s. To welcome a new century, the ABA's continued financial success encouraged them to expand two more times. Two teams in the Southeast, the New Orleans Buccaneers, homage to the original name of the Baltimore Claws, and Memphis Sounds, another former name of the Baltimore Claws. Now at 32 teams, the ABA is ready to begin a new era with stars like LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Stephen Curry. The social media age has also given immense exposure to ABA players, teams, and the league as a greater whole. On the horizon, the ABA perhaps looks to expand internationally again, or perhaps add a franchise to Las Vegas. The amount of options are endless. The biggest changes would have to be the implementation of the three-point shot, dunk contest, 30-second shot clock, Spencer Haywood hardship rule, and representation of professional basketball in the South. Many, if not all of these changes, were then adopted by the NBA in real life, thus making them ABA influences. Is it possible that without the intervention of the ABA's revolutionary offense, would the NBA's slow, methodical game eventually fizzle out for fans? That could entirely be true. Among both 30 NBA and ABA franchises, there are 15 different franchises with homes all around the Southeast and Northeast. Would this representation in states like Kentucky, Virginia, and Missouri spark interest amongst the youth and new players, leading to new talent pools of players of all levels? Quite possibly, as resources and representation are very important in building a passionate bond. Would the ABA been better in the long run than the NBA? I am not sure. That is up for your interpretations. Thanks so much for checking this video out. I know there's a different type of video focusing on my interpretations and historical knowledge. Not much of this information can be based in the fact as we don't have a large sample size of ABA years with only 9. Who knows how sustainable their business models would have been, especially if their motivations changed from pursuing a merger to just being the best product for basketball. Anyways, hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, I'm going to peace out here and say bye. See you later.